From a silent, broken world of dust, two travelers came. Oakland, whose long hair was the color of winter frost, and Kale, whose form was of the ancient, wild forests, stepped onto a new world, vibrant and green. Their home, once a garden of starlight and wonders, was now just a memory carried on the cosmic wind. They watched the new beings who called themselves humans. These creatures lived in tall nests of stone and glass, and they moved in chariots of roaring metal. They walked upon the soil, but did not seem to feel the hum of life beneath their feet. To them, the wild plants were just weeds in the way of their straight lines and hard paths. "They cannot hear the whispers of the green," Oakland said, her voice like the rustling of ancient leaves. "Their world is filled with noise, and they have forgotten the language of the earth. We must teach them, Kale, before this world also forgets how to heal itself." They began with the simplest of things, the bright dandelion, which the humans called a weed. "This is not a foe," Oakland would explain softly to anyone who would listen. "This is a gift. Its roots cleanse the body, and its flower is a tiny sun to brighten your plate and your spirit." Kale, who spoke little, taught with his actions. When a child fell and scraped their knee, crying out in pain, Kale found the broad-leafed plantain growing nearby. He crushed a leaf in his great, gentle hand and placed the green balm on the wound. The child's tears soon stopped, replaced by wide-eyed wonder. "Every plant has a purpose and a spirit," Oakland taught, holding up a sprig of chamomile. "This one holds the memory of quiet afternoons and peaceful dreams. It is a gentle lullaby for a troubled mind, a request for stillness in a cup." "You must not simply take from the earth," Kale's deep voice rumbled, like stones shifting underground. "You must ask permission. You must leave a token of your thanks, a sip of water, a quiet song, a promise to care for its kin. The earth provides for those who show respect." Oakland explained that some herbs healed hurts that could not be seen. "Rosemary is for remembrance, to keep the stories of your ancestors alive in your heart," she said, her eyes distant. "And the smoke of sage is to wash the air of sorrow, making a clean space for happiness to enter." "This knowledge is a powerful seed," Oakland warned, her tone serious. "In gentle and respectful hands, it can grow a forest of healing that will shelter generations. But used carelessly, it can bring great harm. You must treat this power with wisdom and care." And so, the people began to see their world differently. The field was not just grass, but a carpet of remedies. The forest was not just wood, but a living library of wellness. Oakland and Kale had not brought magic. They had simply returned to humanity the key to the earth's own pharmacy, reminding them how to listen to the whispers of the green. "The first and most important tools are these," Oakland began, holding out her hands to a small group of attentive villagers who had sought her out. "With your hands, you feel the life within a plant. You learn its texture, its strength, its willingness to be harvested. They are not for tearing, but for asking, for receiving the gift the plant offers." Kale, ever the quiet teacher, showed them his gathering basket. It was woven from willow branches, strong yet pliable. He laid a few freshly picked chamomile flowers inside, demonstrating how they must rest gently, without being crushed. "The basket is a cradle, not a cage." His deep voice resonated. "It carries the plant's spirit home with respect." Oakland then presented a heavy stone mortar and pestle. "This is a tool of transformation," she explained, placing a few dried yarrow leaves into the bowl. "It is not for violence, but for persuasion. Here we ask the plants to release their essence, to join their strengths, to become something new and powerful together." Kale held up a small, sharp knife with a handle carved from fallen oak. He used it to cleanly snip a sprig of rosemary from a bush. "A clean cut is a kindness," he rumbled. "It tells the plant you mean it no harm, that you are taking only what you need, and that you wish for it to heal and grow strong." Inside their dwelling, Oakland showed the villagers bundles of herbs hanging from the ceiling and spread on woven racks. "Air and time are tools as well," she said softly. We use them to preserve the sun's energy captured in these leaves and flowers. We are saving warmth for a cold day, light for a dark night. Kale sat by a collection of clay pots and glass jars. He carefully funneled dried elderflowers into one, sealing it with a cork stopper. Each jar is a promise, he said. A promise to the plant that its gift will be cherished and used with purpose, not forgotten on a dusty shelf. Fire and water are the great transformers, Oakland taught, tending a small, simmering pot over a fire. Water coaxes the gentle spirits from leaves and flowers for a healing tea. Fire calls forth the deep strength from roots and bark. You must learn which to use and when. Kale mixed crushed comfrey leaves with a bit of clay and water in a small bowl, his fingers working the mixture into a thick paste. Sometimes the healing must be placed directly where it is needed, he explained. The earth itself can be a tool to bind the herbs to the body, a poultice to soothe and mend. But the most vital tool, Oakland said, placing a hand over her heart, is here, a grateful heart, an intention to heal. Without this, the sharpest knife, the finest mortar, they are all just stone and steel. The plants offer their spirits to those who approach with respect and love. This is the true key. The people listened, and they learned. They began to use their hands not just to take, but to tend. Their baskets were woven with care, their knives were kept sharp, and their hearts were filled with gratitude. They were no longer just users of the forest, but were becoming its partners, its caretakers, its students. A man named Finn, his shoulders stooped with the weight of a world that moved too fast, found his way to a hidden clearing. Before him stood Oakland, a druid whose calm presence was a stark contrast to the storm within him. You seek balance, she said, her voice like the rustling of ancient leaves. The forest offers it, but you must learn to listen. Your body is a garden, and stress, the unrelenting weed. We will teach you to cultivate resilience. From the shadows of the great trees, a towering figure emerged. It was Kale, a creature of moss and might, whose gentle eyes belied his formidable size. He held a gnarled root in his massive palm. This is ashwagandha, Oakland explained as Finn watched, mesmerized. It does not simply numb your weariness. It teaches your body how to manage the stressor, calming the storm so you can find your own strength. Imagine your body's stress response as a frantic messenger, Oakland continued, her hands tracing patterns in the air. Ashwagandha doesn't silence the messenger. It sits with it, calms its panicked cries, and helps it deliver its message with clarity, not chaos. It modulates your cortisol, the hormone of alarm, allowing your mind to quiet and your energy to return, steady and true. Kale led them to a shaded patch of earth, where he carefully unearthed a root shaped curiously like a human form. Ginseng, his deep voice rumbled. This is not for the fleeting jolt of a lightning strike, but for the enduring energy of the sun. It builds vitality from within, a deep well of stamina for both body and mind. Where ashwagandha brings calm, ginseng brings focus, Oakland added, taking the root from Kale. It sharpens a mind dulled by fatigue and fortifies the body against physical exhaustion. Think of it as the wise elder who reminds your body of its innate capacity for endurance, helping you to not just survive your days, but to thrive within them. Their journey took them to a sun-dappled grove, where a fragrant, leafy plant grew in abundance. Tulsi, or holy basil, Oakland said, crushing a leaf between her fingers and offering it to Finn. We call it the elixir of life. It is a balm for the spirit as much as the body. It elevates your mood and helps protect you from the chemical and emotional pollutants of your world. Back at their dwelling, Kale gently placed fresh holy basil leaves into a clay pot of hot water. The steam that rose carried a calming, spicy aroma. This is a daily ritual, Oakland explained. A simple tea that cleanses the mind and fortifies your inner defenses. It doesn't build a wall against stress, but rather makes your internal landscape more harmonious and less susceptible to disruption. For the last lesson, Oakland led Finn to a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley. Here, clinging to the thin soil, grew a resilient succulent. Rhodiola, she announced. This plant thrives in harshness. It learns resilience from its environment, and it passes that lesson on to you. It is for when you feel you are at the very edge of your capacity, fighting both mental and physical fatigue. Rhodiola speaks to the messengers in your brain, serotonin, dopamine, Oakland explained. It encourages them, preventing their depletion when you are under strain. It helps you think clearly under pressure and lifts the fog of exhaustion, allowing you to climb your own mountains, both real and metaphorical. Finn left the clearing not with a pouch of magic cures, but with a profound understanding. The forest had taught him that vitality was not about avoiding stress, but about adapting to it. Ashwagandha for calm, ginseng for stamina, holy basil for balance, and rhodiola for resilience. He carried not just remedies, but a new partnership with the green world, and the quiet strength to cultivate his own inner garden. A man named Finn, his face etched with the constant, gnawing discomfort of a gut at war with itself, sought a clearing spoken of only in whispers. There he found Oakland, a druid whose eyes held the deep, still wisdom of the forest floor. "The world you come from is loud and fast," Oakland said, her voice a low murmur like wind through pine. "Your stomach screams to be heard. We will teach you its secret language." From the deep green shadows, a being of moss and quiet strength emerged. It was Kale, whose immense form moved with a gentleness that belied his size. In his hand he held a gnarled, pale root. "Ginger," Oakland explained, as Finn watched with wide eyes. "It is the fiery root of comfort. It brings warmth to a cold, knotted stomach and stills the churning sea of nausea." They walked to the edge of a chattering stream where a patch of vibrant green leaves grew in the damp soil. Oakland plucked a leaf. "Peppermint," she said, crushing it between her fingers to release a sharp, clean scent. "Your gut is inflamed, a fire stoked by worry. Peppermint is the cooling mist. It eases the burn and unknots the painful spasms that bind you." Kale led them into a sun-drenched meadow, a tapestry of tiny, daisy-like flowers. He moved with surprising grace, gathering a handful of the white and yellow blossoms. "Chamomile," Oakland's voice was soft. "The flower of peace. It quiets the cramping muscles of your belly, but more importantly, it soothes the anxious mind that commands them. A calm mind begets a calm gut." Their journey continued to a patch of tall, feathery plants. "Fennel," Oakland announced, gesturing to the plant's delicate structure. "Its seeds are small promises of release. They persuade the trapped, painful air in your gut to move on, allowing your body to settle into its own comfortable space." At the base of a sturdy-looking plant, Kale dug with careful, powerful hands, unearthing a long, woody root. "Licorice root," said Oakland. "This is a deeper medicine. It provides a soothing lining for your stomach, a balm for the raw, tender places, worn thin by the acids of stress." Oakland took the root from Kale and held it out for Finn to inspect. "But this one demands respect," she cautioned. "The relief it offers is profound, but it is not meant for constant use. True wisdom is found in knowing a remedy's power, but also its proper place. Nature does not offer shortcuts, only partnerships." In a dwelling that seemed grown from the earth itself, Kale used a heavy stone mortar and pestle to grind the day's harvest. The air filled with a complex symphony of scents, spicy, sweet, and earthy. "A ritual," Oakland explained. "A daily conversation. You are preparing a tea not just to drink, but to understand." Oakland poured steaming water over the ground herbs and handed a simple clay cup to Finn. "Listen to them," she urged. "The ginger warms and awakens. The peppermint cools and soothes. The chamomile brings peace. The fennel offers release, and the licorice lends its protective coat. This is how your body speaks back." Finn left the clearing not with a pouch of magical cures, but with a quiet comprehension. His health was not a battle to be won, but a garden to be tended. He carried the knowledge of the 5 herbs not as weapons, but as trusted advisors in the gentle, profound art of listening to the whispers of his own body. Oakland, a druid whose eyes held the deep, quiet wisdom of the forest floor, sensed a subtle disharmony in the wind. It was the scent of a spirit worn thin, a life force struggling against an unseen tide. She found him by a stream, a traveler pale and weary from a world that had taken too much. "Your inner shield has worn thin," she said, her voice like the rustling of ancient leaves. "The unseen battles of your world have left cracks in your defenses. We must teach you to mend them." From the deep green shadows, a being of moss and quiet strength emerged. It was Kale, whose immense form moved with a gentleness that belied his size. In his hand, he held a flower with a fiery, cone-like center and drooping purple petals. "Echinacea," Oakland explained. "The warrior flower. It does not fight your battles for you, but it awakens your body's own soldiers, sharpening their spears and readying them for invasion." They walked to a clearing where bushes stood heavy with clusters of dark, nearly black berries. Kale gently bent a branch towards Oakland. "Elderberry," she said, her fingers brushing the ripe fruit. "These are the forest's dark jewels. They form a protective cloak, a barrier at your gates that turns away unwelcome spirits of sickness before they can find entry." Kale led them to a sun-drenched meadow where he knelt and began to dig with careful, powerful hands. He unearthed a long, woody root, holding it up for the traveler to see. "Astragalus." Oakland's voice was soft. "The root of endurance. This is not a swift remedy, but a deep one. It builds your foundation, your core energy, so that your defenses never tire. It is the strength of the mountain, slow and unyielding." In a small patch near the base of an old oak, a sharp, familiar scent filled the air. Kale reached into the soil and pulled forth a pale bulb, its papery skin clinging with dark earth. "Garlic," Oakland said with a smile. "A humble but fierce protector. Its fire purifies the blood and drives out lingering shadows. Never underestimate the power that grows in common soil." In a dwelling that seemed grown from the earth itself, Kale used a heavy stone to crush the pungent garlic cloves. The air filled with their sharp, clean scent. "The preparation is a ritual," Oakland explained, her voice a low murmur. "It is an act of intention. You are not merely making medicine. You are focusing your will on wellness, weaving your own strength into the gifts of the earth." Oakland took the tough astragalus root and began to slice it into thin pieces, dropping them into a pot of simmering water. "Some remedies must be coaxed," she said. "The strength of this root is deep and patient. We warm it slowly, inviting its resilience to infuse the water, creating a brew that builds your vitality from the very core of your being." In another pot, she combined the dark elderberries with a stream of golden honey, stirring the mixture over the gentle heat. "And some remedies are an offering of sweetness," she said. "The berry's protective shield is bound with the warmth of honey. This syrup is a comforting balm, a sweet reminder that the forest protection is also a form of love." She laid out the 4 remedies: the sharp scent of the garlic, the earthy steam of the astragalus tea, the sweet elderberry syrup, and a tincture of echinacea. "They are a council of guardians," she told the traveler. "The warrior, the elder, the foundation, and the purifier. Alone, they are strong. Together, they will teach your body to be a fortress." The traveler left the clearing not with a pouch of magical cures, but with a quiet comprehension. His health was not a battle to be won, but a garden to be tended. He carried the knowledge of the 4 herbs not as weapons, but as trusted advisors, in the gentle, profound art of listening to the whispers of his own body. Oakland, the druid whose spirit was woven into the ancient woods, watched her oldest friend, Kale, the gentle giant of the forest, moved with a stiffness that pained her heart. Each step, usually so silent, was now a heavy, considered effort. The deep ache of time and old injuries had settled into his mighty frame, a persistent shadow dimming his quiet strength. She approached him, her feet making no sound on the mossy ground. "The fire within your joints burns too hot, old friend," she said softly, her voice like the whisper of wind through pine needles. "The body's memory of old battles lingers. We will seek the earth's comfort, beginning with the root that holds the sun's warmth." Kale led them to a patch of broad-leafed plants, and with immense care, his powerful hands cleared the soil to reveal a rhizome of brilliant, fiery orange. "Turmeric?" Oakland murmured, taking the offered root. "It carries the heat of the sun deep into the body, not to burn, but to soothe. It reminds the inner fire how to be a gentle warmth, not a raging flame." Their path then took them to the water's edge, where a graceful willow tree dipped its branches toward the flowing stream. "The willow knows the secret of yielding," Oakland said, stroking a silvery leaf. "It teaches the body to bend without breaking, to release the rigid grip of pain. Its bark holds a whisper of relief for the weary." Kale, understanding the need for respect, chose a low-hanging branch and carefully peeled away a small strip of the thin outer bark. He offered it to Oakland on his wide palm. "A gift freely given," she said, accepting it. "The tree shares its gentle strength, asking only that we take no more than we need." In a sunlit clearing, they found a patch of small, cheerful flowers with bright yellow centers and delicate white petals. "Feverfew," Oakland identified them. "When pain draws a tight band around the mind, these little suns bring calm. They quiet the throbbing storm in the temples that so often follows the body's deeper aches." Kale sat beside the patch, his enormous fingers, surprisingly deft, plucking the flower heads one by one. He gathered them in a large leaf, his movements slow and deliberate. It was a meditation, a quiet prayer for peace from the relentless thrum of his own discomfort. Finally, she guided him to an ancient gnarled tree, clinging to a rocky outcrop. A golden, fragrant resin beaded on its trunk. "Boswellia," she said, her voice full of reverence. "These are the tree's sacred tears. They carry an ancient coolness that can reach the deepest, most stubborn fires of inflammation, offering a profound and holy peace." Back in their moss-covered shelter, Oakland prepared the 4 remedies. She grated the turmeric, steeped the willow bark, infused the feverfew, and gently warmed the boswellia resin. "They are a counsel of comfort," she told Kale. "The warmth of the sun, the whisper of the willow, the calm of the field, and the peace of the mountain. Together, they will help your body remember its own ease." Kale accepted a warm cup from her hands, the steam carrying the earthy, spicy scents of his own healing. There was no sudden magic, only a slow, creeping warmth. It was the beginning of a conversation, a renewed partnership between his body and the ancient, whispering wisdom of the green. Oakland, the druid whose heart beat in rhythm with the forest, watched her oldest friend. Kale, the great, gentle giant, sat by the stream, his massive shoulders slumped. The sparkling light in his eyes, usually so full of curiosity and quiet joy, had dimmed to a distant flicker. A heavy stillness had wrapped around his spirit, a fog that the morning sun could not pierce. She came to his side, her presence as soft as falling leaves. "The sun shines on the forest, my friend, but not within you," she said, her voice a gentle murmur. "The heart's memory can become a heavy stone. We will walk a path to find the plants that speak to the spirit and coax the light back into the mind." She led him to a sun-drenched clearing where star-shaped yellow flowers grew in abundance. "This is St. John's wort," Oakland explained, touching a delicate petal. "It captures the sunlight and holds it. When shadows lengthen in the mind, these little suns can remind the spirit how to shine, chasing away the clinging tendrils of melancholy." Kale watched her. Then slowly, his large fingers, surprisingly gentle, began to pluck the flowers. He gathered them into a wide leaf, his movements hesitant at first, then more steady. It was a simple act, but it was a beginning, a choice to reach for the light. Their journey continued to an ancient tree with unique, fan-shaped leaves. "Ginkgo," Oakland said, her voice full of respect for its age. "This tree has seen millennia. It holds the memory of the world. Its leaves carry a secret for the mind, helping to clear the fog of confusion and sharpen the thoughts that have grown dull with sorrow. Near the babbling brook, a patch of bright green leaves released a sweet citrus scent as they passed. "Lemon balm," said Oakland, crushing a leaf between her fingers and offering it to Kale. "It sings a song of peace to a troubled heart. When worries buzz like trapped bees in the chest, its scent and spirit bring a gentle calm." Kale took the offered leaf. He rubbed it between his own vast palms and lifted them to his face, inhaling the bright, clean fragrance. For the first time that day, the deep line of tension in his brow seemed to soften, just a little. Their final stop was a rocky, sun-warmed slope where slender stalks of purple flowers swayed in the breeze. "Lavender," Oakland whispered, the name itself a sigh of relief. "This is the herb of tranquility. It quiets the restless mind and invites deep, healing sleep, allowing the spirit to mend itself in the quiet hours of the night." In the quiet of their shared shelter, Oakland combined the four gifts of the forest: the sun-bright St. John's wort, the wise ginkgo, the peaceful lemon balm, and the restful lavender. "They are a counsel of comfort," she told Kale. "The light of the sun, the clarity of the ancients, the peace of the meadow, and the dream of the mountain. Together, they will help your spirit find its way back to the light." Kale accepted the warm cup she offered, the steam carrying a fragrant promise of peace. He drank it slowly, the warmth spreading through him. There was no sudden change, only the quiet, gentle beginning of a shift. It was a conversation, a renewed friendship between his own spirit and the ancient, whispering wisdom of the green. Oakland, the druid whose heart beat in rhythm with the forest, noticed a change in her oldest friend. Kale, the great, gentle giant, was scratching at his arm, his usual calm demeanor replaced with a subtle but persistent discomfort. The massive Bigfoot's fur, usually thick and lustrous, looked dull and irritated in patches. Oakland moved closer, her eyes, the color of moss and ancient stone, filled with concern. "The forest floor is rough, my friend, and your skin is telling a story of irritation," she said, her voice a low rumble like distant thunder. "But the green world holds its own balms. We will find the leaves and flowers that soothe and protect." She led Kale to a sunny patch where cheerful golden-orange flowers bloomed. "This is calendula," Oakland explained, her fingers brushing against the velvety petals. "These blossoms are like captured sunshine. They hold the power to soothe angry skin, calming the itch and encouraging the flesh to mend." Kale watched, his intelligent eyes taking in the vibrant color of the flowers. He reached out a massive hand, his touch surprisingly delicate, and plucked a single calendula blossom. He held it in his palm, a spot of bright color against his dark fur, a silent promise of relief. Their path then took them to a cluster of spiky, green plants. "Aloe vera," Oakland said, carefully breaking off a thick leaf. "Within this tough exterior lies a cooling gel, a balm that quenches the fire of irritated skin. It is a gift of moisture and healing from the heart of the plant." Near a stand of tall, slender trees with papery bark, the air was filled with a clean, medicinal scent. "Tea tree," said Oakland, pointing to the source of the aroma. "The oil from these leaves is a potent protector. It cleanses the skin, warding off the unseen troubles that can cause such discomfort." Kale reached out and gently crushed a few of the tea tree leaves between his fingers. He brought them to his nose, inhaling the strong, clean scent. A look of understanding crossed his features as he connected the aroma with the promise of a clean, soothed skin. Back in their shared clearing, Oakland began to prepare the remedies. She infused the calendula blossoms in warm oil, releasing their golden healing properties. She carefully extracted the cool, clear gel from the aloe vera leaf, and she crushed the tea tree leaves, releasing their potent, cleansing oil. "Nature offers its own apothecary," Oakland said, her voice a gentle hum. "The calendula to soothe, the aloe vera to cool and heal, and the tea tree to cleanse and protect. Together, they are a trinity of comfort for the skin. Kale gently applied the soothing balm to his irritated skin. There was no magic, only the quiet, profound wisdom of the forest at work. The itching began to subside, replaced by a cool, clean sensation. It was a silent conversation, a language of healing understood between the great creature and the whispering green. Oakland, whose spirit was woven into the ancient fabric of the forest, felt a subtle dissonance in the woods. It wasn't the rustle of leaves or the chatter of squirrels. It was the heavy silence of her oldest friend, Kale, the great, gentle giant whose presence was usually a comforting anchor, now seemed adrift. His deep-set eyes held a storm of frustration, and a low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound of inner turmoil rather than external threat. "The forest feels your disquiet, my friend," Oakland said softly, her voice like the murmur of a hidden stream. She moved to stand beside him, her small form a stark contrast to his towering frame. "What troubles the heart of the mountain?" Kale sighed, a sound like shifting stones. "There is a fire in my blood, Oakland, a heat that makes the days long, and my temper short. My mate feels it too. She has grown distant, her spirit clouded." A knowing light entered Oakland's eyes. The body, like the seasons, has its own cycles of fire and calm. When the inner rhythm is lost, the spirit falters. "Come, the green world understands this language." She led him to a thicket where a tall shrub grew, adorned with delicate violet flowers and small, dark berries. "This is chasteberry," she explained, plucking a few ripe fruits. "It whispers to the body's core, encouraging a gentle balance and soothing the restless fire that shortens your patience." Kale watched her, his massive shoulders slumped. He took the small, peppercorn-like berries she offered. In his enormous hand, they seemed impossibly tiny, yet he held them with a newfound reverence. He sniffed them, their scent earthy and sharp, a stark contrast to the sweet fragrance of the flowers. A flicker of hope ignited within his troubled gaze. Their journey continued into a cooler, shadier part of the forest, where tall, elegant plants with feathery white flowers grew. "And this," Oakland said, her voice dropping to a respectful hush, "is black cohosh. Its roots run deep, and they hold a special wisdom for the female body, easing the cramps and clouds that can descend upon the spirit. A balanced mate will soothe your own restless heart." Kale listened, a deep understanding dawning in his eyes. He thought of his mate, of her sighs in the moonlight, and the sadness that clung to her like morning mist. He saw how her pain had become his own. With surprising gentleness, his powerful fingers joined Oakland's in the soft earth, helping her to carefully unearth a piece of the gnarled, dark root. The last stop was a sandy clearing where low-growing palms fanned out across the ground, their berries a deep, purplish black. "Saw palmetto," Oakland announced, gesturing to the fruit. "This is for you, Kale. It speaks directly to the male fire, helping to temper its heat and maintain its strength. It supports the deep waters of a man's vitality, ensuring the fire burns steady, not wild." In the quiet of their shared clearing, Oakland laid out their harvest on a flat, sun-warmed stone. "The forest asks for little in return for its gifts," she said, beginning the simple preparations. She showed Kale how the berries of the chasteberry and saw palmetto would be dried for later use, and how the black cohosh root must be cleaned and sliced to share its potent medicine. She bundled the herbs in large leaves, tying them with vines. "For your mate," she said, handing him the black cohosh. "And these, for you." She gave him the chasteberry and saw palmetto. "This is not a sudden magic, but a slow, deep conversation with your body. Be patient. Listen to the whispers of the green as they guide you back to harmony." Kale nodded, his deep eyes conveying a gratitude that needed no words. He turned and walked back towards the deeper woods, his steps lighter than they had been in months. He carried not just roots and berries, but a renewed sense of hope. The forest had offered its wisdom, a quiet promise that the cycles of fire and calm could be restored. and that harmony for him and his mate was waiting to be found again. Oakland, a druid whose soul was entwined with the ancient forest, noticed the quiet change in her oldest friend. Kale, the great Bigfoot, moved with a heaviness that seemed to press the very moss flat beneath his feet. The vibrant energy that usually radiated from him was gone, replaced by a deep weariness. "My heart," Kale rumbled, his voice like stones grinding together, "beats a tired drum." "The heart is the river of life, Kale," Oakland said softly, her voice a calming murmur against his despair. She sat beside him, a small, steadfast presence. When its current slows, the entire forest of the body feels the drought. But the green world knows the songs that can make the river flow strong again. She led him through the trees to a thorny shrubbery, its branches thick with deep-lobed leaves and clusters of brilliant red berries. "This is hawthorn," Oakland explained, her fingers gently touching the fruit. "Its berries are guardians of the heart. They strengthen its beat and widen the riverbanks, ensuring the flow of life is steady and powerful." Kale watched, his curiosity stirring. He accepted the small, crimson berry she offered. He crushed one between his thumb and forefinger, inhaling its tart, earthy scent before placing another in his mouth. He chewed slowly, his brow furrowed as he tasted the fruit that held the promise of a stronger rhythm for his tired heart. Their path then took them to a tree with distinctive, fragrant bark. With careful precision, Oakland peeled away a small, curled section. "Cinnamon," she whispered, holding the rich, reddish-brown bark for him to smell. "This is the fire that warms the river. It teaches the body how to use the sweetness of its fuel so the waters do not become sluggish and thick." Kale took the piece of bark, its potent aroma a jolt to his senses. He thought of the lethargy that often claimed him after he ate, how his energy would wane instead of wax. He broke off a tiny piece and chewed it, a gentle warmth spreading through him like the first rays of dawn. Finally, Oakland guided him to a quiet, misty grove where low shrubs with glossy green leaves grew in serene abundance. "And here," she said, her voice hushed, "is green tea. These leaves hold the wisdom of clear-flowing streams. They gently cleanse the body's rivers and protect them from the passage of time." Oakland gathered a handful of the fresh leaves. Using a bit of her Druidic magic, she warmed a hollow in a stone filled with spring water. She showed Kale how to drop the leaves into the steaming water, releasing a clean, fresh scent that seemed to clear the air itself. She fashioned a cup from a broad leaf, pouring the fragrant, pale green liquid into it and handing it to him. "Drink," she urged gently. "Let this remind your body of its own natural clarity." Kale held the cup in both hands, the warmth seeping into his palms as he drank the clean, slightly bitter tea. With bundles of hawthorn, cinnamon, and green tea tied in leaves, Kale felt a strength he hadn't in seasons. "The forest gives you the tools," Oakland said, "but you must do the work. Be patient and listen to the rhythm of your own heart." Kale placed a large hand over his chest, a silent promise made. He turned and walked away, his steps already lighter, the tired drum within him beginning to find its powerful, steady beat once more. Kale, the great Bigfoot, moved with a sluggishness that troubled Oakland. His usually bright eyes were dull, and a deep sigh seemed to be his only language. "I feel clogged, Oakland," he rumbled, his voice like slow-moving mud. "As if my inner rivers are thick with silt." Oakland, whose wisdom was as deep as the forest floor, nodded slowly. The body, like the earth, can become burdened. Its waters can grow stagnant, but the green world offers ways to cleanse the streams. She led him not to a grand tree or a rare flower, but to a sunny patch of bright yellow dandelions. "We start with the liver, the great filter of your body's rivers," she explained. "This humble flower, often dismissed as a weed, is a powerful ally. Its roots and leaves encourage the release of what is old and stagnant, making way for the new." Nearby, a plant with striking, milky-veined leaves and a prickly purple flower stood tall. "And this is milk thistle," Oakland continued, her hand hovering over the spiky bloom. "While the dandelion cleanses, the milk thistle protects. It builds a strong dam around your liver, shielding it from the toxins that would otherwise pollute your waters." Kale looked at the thorny plant. He understood the need for protection. He had guarded his forest home his entire life. The idea that a simple plant could do the same for the home within his own body was a profound one. He reached out a single, massive finger, gently touching a leaf and avoiding the spines. "But the body's work is done in rest, and your sleep has been troubled," Oakland observed. She led him to a place where a tall plant with clusters of sweet-smelling, pale pink flowers grew. Valerian. Its root holds the secret of deep, untroubled slumber. It quiets the restless mind, allowing the body's rivers to flow peacefully through the night, doing their healing work without disturbance. Oakland carefully dug up a small piece of the gnarled root, the earthy scent rising to meet them. She offered it to Kale. He held it in his palm, the pungent aroma, a promise of the peace his body craved. He imagined a sleep so deep it was like the forest floor itself, rich, dark, and full of quiet life. "Once cleansed and rested, the body must be nourished," she said, stopping by a patch of familiar stinging nettle. "Do not be fooled by its sting. This plant is a deep green well of nourishment. It replenishes the blood and strengthens the very bones, giving your body the building blocks it needs to be strong and vital." Finally, she brought him to a plant with feathery leaves and tight clusters of white flowers. "This is yarrow," she said, her voice full of reverence. "It is the warrior's herb, the guardian of boundaries. It teaches the body how to heal its own wounds, how to seal itself off from harm, and how to maintain its own perfect balance. It is the final step in reclaiming your strength." Oakland prepared bundles of each herb for him: the cleansing dandelion, the protective milk thistle, the peaceful valerian, the nourishing nettle, and the balancing yarrow. Kale held them in his arms, the combined scents, a potent perfume of healing. It was more than just a collection of plants, it was a map back to himself. "The forest has shared its wisdom, Kale," Oakland said softly. "Now you must be the one to brew the teas, to listen to your body, and to walk the path back to wellness." Kale nodded, a deep and profound gratitude in his eyes. He turned and walked back towards his mountain home, his steps no longer sluggish, but deliberate and filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The cleansing had already begun. Kale returned to Oakland weeks later, a new vitality in his step. The dullness in his eyes was replaced by a clear light, his movements once again powerful and sure. "The green has sung me back to life," he rumbled, his voice a grateful thunder. "But as I gathered more of the nettle to strengthen my bones, I saw that its leaves were pale, its sting less fierce. The yarrow in the high meadow droops, its white flowers tinged with brown." Oakland's smile faded, replaced by a deep, familiar sorrow. "You see with clear eyes now, Kale. You see that the body of the earth is also burdened. The herbs are the planet's own language, and they are whispering of a sickness. The same sickness that clogged your inner rivers is now choking the very soil from which they spring." She led him to the stream where they had first met. It once ran clear and cold, but now a strange, oily sheen marred its surface, and the stones were coated in a gray slime. "The waters are poisoned," she said softly. "The air carries a dust that settles on the leaves, and the soil drinks in carelessness." The dandelion and the milk thistle struggled to cleanse a world that is being poisoned faster than they can heal. Kale looked from the sick water to Oakland's sorrowful face. "Why?" he asked, the single word a chasm of confusion and anger. "Why would any creature foul its own home?" Oakland looked up at the canopy, at the slivers of sky between the leaves. "Because they have forgotten," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They have forgotten that the world is not a thing to be used, but a life to be lived with. They have forgotten the story that is written in our very bones, Kale, the story of our first home." "We are not from this world," Oakland confessed, the words hanging heavy in the air. "We are the last echoes of a planet that died. Its people grew so clever they forgot to be wise. They built wonders of metal and light, but they poisoned their rivers, choked their skies, and silenced the green. The herbs withered first, their whispers fading into nothing. Then the world itself grew silent. Kale stared at her, the pieces of his own fragmented memories clicking into place. A sky of a different color, the taste of ash on the wind, a desperate flight. He was not just a beast of the forest, he was a refugee. And this world, his sanctuary, was now showing the same scars as the one he had lost. The cleansing you undertook for your body is the same cleansing this world now needs, Oakland continued, her voice gaining strength. The dandelion's power to release the old, the milk thistle's shield, the nettle's deep nourishment, the yarrow's healing of wounds. These are not just lessons for the body, but for the soul of the world. A new purpose settled in Kale's heart, a resolve as solid as the mountain he called home. His strength was not just for himself, but for this world that had given him refuge. We will not let this home fall to the same silence, he vowed, his voice resonating through the trees. We will be its guardians. We will be its voice. They were no longer just a druid and a Bigfoot, but keepers of a fragile green hope. They were the memory of a lost world and the fierce protectors of a new one. Their work had just begun, to heal the earth, one whisper of the green at a time, ensuring that this world's song would never fade into silence. Kale returned to Oakland weeks later, a new vitality in his step. The dullness in his eyes was replaced by a clear light, his movements once again powerful and sure. The green has sung me back to life, he rumbled, his voice a grateful thunder. And I have been sharing its song with all who will listen. The deer with the aching joints, the squirrel with the troubled sleep. I have taught them the ways of the herbs, just as you taught me. Oakland's smile faded, replaced by a deep, familiar sorrow. Your heart is a clear stream, Kale, but your knowledge is a shallow pool. The herbs are not a simple song to be sung by all. They are a complex language, and a single word misspoken can cause great harm. Kale's brow furrowed in confusion. But they are of the earth, he argued. How can that which springs from the soil be anything but good? He told her of a pregnant doe he had given a blend of herbs to, the same that had soothed his own ailments, believing it would grant strength to both mother and fawn. The same sun that warms the flower can also scorch the field, Oakland said softly. And the same herb that can heal one can harm another. Some herbs, Kale, are not meant for the delicate miracle of new life. They can turn a mother's body against itself, and what was intended as a blessing can become a curse. The strength seemed to drain from Kale's limbs, his newfound vitality replaced by a chilling fear. The image of the doe, her gentle eyes trusting him, flashed in his mind. What have I done? He whispered, the sound swallowed by the vastness of the forest. You have acted with a good heart but a blind hand, Oakland said, her voice gentle but firm. The whispers of the green are not for the untrained ear to interpret. That is why one must always seek the guidance of a qualified healthcare professional or a certified herbalist before using any medicinal herbs. They have spent a lifetime learning the language you have just begun to hear. Kale stared at her, the weight of his ignorance settling upon him like a shroud. He was not a healer. He was a child playing with a fire he did not understand. And in his eagerness to share the warmth, he had nearly burned down the forest. This is especially true, Oakland continued, her voice a solemn vow, for those who are pregnant, nursing, or taking other medicines. The herbs can have side effects, Kale, and can clash with other drugs like two stags locking horns in a battle to the death. A new purpose settled in Kale's heart, a resolve as solid as the mountain he called home. His strength was not just for himself, but for this world that had given him refuge. I will not be a blind hand any longer, he vowed, his voice resonating through the trees. I will be your student. I will learn the language of the green, not just its song. They were no longer just a druid and a Bigfoot, but a master and an apprentice, keepers of a fragile green hope. They were the memory of a lost world and the fierce protectors of a new one. Their work had just begun, to heal the earth, one whisper of the green at a time, ensuring that this world's song would never be sung out of tune.